Hey everybody, and this is our
Top 5!
Yes, finally our top 5 favorite board games of all time, the moment you have all been waiting for. So we are excited to get to it. Let's get into it.
So we are getting into our top 5 board games of all time, and this list will never ever change. Ever. Except for maybe
Until next year.
Until next year. You have to tune in for the definitive top 50 board games of all time.
Number 5.
So I'm gonna get the ball rolling with my number 5. It's Wingspan. If you haven't heard of it, then you've been living under a rock. It is a fantastic game. I know we've talked about it before on this list. We're gonna talk about it again on this list. It's lighthearted, great art, engine building. There's a bunch of different ways it can go, and every time we play it, there's a different iteration for it. So, yeah, it's just fantastic.
It is.
Yeah. Ryan, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Lords of Waterdeep. It's the very first game I ever bought. My friends were living in Chicago, and I'd drive out there and we'd play like once every couple months, so it holds a really special place in my heart. Box is pretty worn from opening it up so many times. Great worker placement game, objective completion game, and even with all the new worker placement games that have come out since then, it still holds up pretty well. So that's my number 5.
Have you played the app version on the iTunes store?
I have not played the app version.
Okay.
I did get the expansion for it. I played it a couple times. I didn't love the expansion. Still would just prefer the base game.
Okay.
That's one of my essential expansions. I love that expansion. Yeah. So
That's one
I
of
just
the
haven't played it
skulls
enough.
where you actually get minus.
Negative
Yes.
points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
It
a
is.
slippery slope.
Yeah,
but
It is.
I do like the risk reward aspect of it.
yeah.
But one of those games that it's just a great introductory game.
Yep.
Like a great gateway
Absolutely.
game. You can get anyone to the table to play it.
I've probably brought that game to the table more than any other ones when I'm playing with a new group of people.
Yeah.
Well, and I know we've had the most diverse group of players play that game with us, too.
Yeah.
Because I know we've had your wife jump in. I think there's been a few other times that we've had just other people that have jumped in and played that game. So.
This is one of the only games, fun fact, that my wife will play like with other people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she usually doesn't like playing in groups, but she will play this one. So
Yeah.
awesome.
That's awesome.
So, John, what's your number 5 all time?
My number 5 all time is actually a super popular card game, and that's Magic the Gathering. And I've been playing this game since I was a kid, and I mean, it is the card game,
Yeah.
I would
Yep.
say. That's probably never going to change as far as I see, because I played as a kid, I got out of it, played in college, got out of it, now I'm back in it, and with MTG Arena, it gives me an avenue to play online. I mean, the game is just so fine-tuned, constantly releasing, new sets. It's just, I don't know, it had to be included on the list.
Yeah, I mean
Great game.
it wouldn't be a top 10 or top 50 list if that wasn't on here somewhere. It is
For
like
sure.
on the Mount Rushmore of games, probably.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I know, we've had card games on our list previously. If you check out our previous video, you will see another card game on somebody's 6 through 10 list. Magic the Gathering had to be on the list somewhere.
Yeah.
So what's your number 5?
My number 5 has been mentioned already too, Viticulture, and probably going to be mentioned again sometime too. But Viticulture is just one of those games that I've just had a great time playing every single time I've played it. It doesn't play as well, like we discussed in the last video, at 2 players, but when you get 3, 4, 5 players, it gets a little bit long too, but maybe 4 players is the sweet spot. This game really shines. You're going from season to season. Worker placement, very simple, but you're just making wine. I think the thing I love most about Viticulture is that you have each unique stage of the winemaking process that you really have to compute and crunch to produce the wine to fulfill the contracts. And as you get into the expansion, the Tuscany expansion, it adds playing out buildings that can give you special powers too, and it gives you just that many more options to do with your hand of cards. So that is Viticulture.
Yep. I think that's a pretty decent game.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Number 4.
So let's go to number 4. John, what's your number 4 favorite game of all time?
My number 4 is actually a game that's been mentioned before, and that is Clank in Space. Again, the theme of being in space really was a huge plus from the base game. I also really like the mechanic that you have to get the key codes in order to get to where the treasures are instead of just going down, grabbing like the 5 treasure and getting out. I think the mechanics are a little more fine-tuned and fair, I guess. I don't know. Just makes it more entertaining. So
Yeah.
And the little comedy things thrown into the theme too are kind of fun.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
The nods to other like nerdy space
sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, that we love kind of chuckling at all those. And
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. So Ryan, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is Great Western Trail. It's a I won't spoil too much of it, but it's a set collection game, move along a board game, kind of 3, maybe 4 different ways you can try to go about winning, which is pretty cool. And I'll leave it at that because it's going to come up again later.
You don't know that.
My number 4 then is Splendor. It's actually a game that I bought from you because it was one of the first games we played, and then we had a decent time with it, but I thought that my wife would like it. So I borrowed it, and then I bought it from you, and she loved it. And when we find a game that we can play together, then that's more valuable for me. And we bought the 4 expansions for it, and we play all of them. And it's a simple game on the surface, but I like the fact that you can build your own engines and have your own paths, and really progress towards comboing and getting a lot of points quickly. Yep. With these expansions, there is a lot of crossover where you are competing against each other now more so. So then we got to the point where the game hasn't been stale, but where we can tell what direction we're going in. But with these expansions, you can really fight with each other in a constructive, game-focused way, as opposed to then after the fact where if somebody doesn't win, then they get really mad at me. But that doesn't happen very often because they usually still win.
So I haven't played with any of the expansions at all. So what you're kind of saying is it takes away that metagame part of it a little bit?
It really changes, especially when it's 2 people. You probably need some of the expansions to get more direct interaction. So it really changes the metagame. If we had regular 3 or 4 people playing this, the game just organically goes with what you're drawing, and there's 3 other turns that happen, so the board changes by the time you get to go again.
Sure.
So
you can't plan ahead as much.
Exactly. Yep. So then when you have other things that come into play, other expansions, or you can block tiles from the other person, then that adds a lot more dynamic nature to what's going on. But yeah, it's a really fun little game that if my wife loves it, then I really like playing it. So that's why it's so high on my list.
Sounds fair.
Yeah. What about you? What's your number 4, Corey?
My number 4 is another Stefan Feld game on the list. There's been a lot of them, but my number 4 is Bruges. So Bruges is a card-driven Stefan Feld game where each card has about 6 different actions you can do with it. That's what really drives the whole game, and what makes it a whole lot of fun for me is that each card is so valuable, and it's just one of those things where it's just like every action is viable, and it kind of adds that tension in your decision making. It's one of those, like in classic Stefan Feld, where you're kind of playing with your own. It's kind of like a solo game, multiplayer solo game type of game, but point salad too. But there's just so many different things you can do. You can build out rivers to get points. You can use cards to get more money to then generate more things on your turn. You can actually flip cards out of your hand. So instead of them being people with special abilities, all of the special abilities are different per person in this game too. Instead of it being that person with a special ability, you can flip it over and turn it into a building to then place a person in that building to trigger their special abilities later on. So just that multi-use, multi-options for each card is what shines.
So it seems like it's a really great game for people who would play it a whole bunch, that you've got different avenues that you can be constantly exploring.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I love it.
And that's why it's got huge staying power at number 4 on your list.
Yeah, it's different every time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
Number 3.
So we're on to number 3, top 3s. Ryan, what is your number 3 game of all time?
My number 3 is Concordia. Probably out of any game I've ever played, this game relies the least on luck, which is just a fun game way to play. There's no dice. Everybody starts with the exact same starting hand of cards that do the exact same thing, and you just are deciding what order you want to play them in to decide where you want to move around on the map. and you can sort of try to cordon off your space a little bit. Other players have to pay you money if they want to move on to your places and use those to score. But I just really love the game that sort of starts as a blank canvas where everybody has the exact same things that they can do, and it's just who plays the game itself best will win no matter what.
So when you've been playing this, has there been a meta game that's formed within it?
Not that I've noticed so far. Maybe people online who are a lot more experienced than me might have found something, but the many times that I've played, it just plays out a little bit differently each time based on kind of where you decide to go and how you decide to score, and there's other people scoring things can get you points too. So
And the multitude of expansions for this game too adds different maps. So
Yeah.
that changes things up a ton too, depending on what different maps you have. And I've played this game a bunch too and love it. It's got that mission red planet mechanism where, like you said, the 10 cards that you have in your hand. I think there's 10, right?
Yep.
Each card is different, and everybody has the same hand though. And there's that one card that bounces everything back to your hand that you kind of have to waste a turn to get your cards back.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of fun.
But timing when you do that,
Yep.
I mean, really kind of change. Like if you do it too soon, you really lose a lot of things you could have done. If you do it too late, you sort of stall out your play. So
Exactly.
you're really timing when you want to get all your cards back. Yeah.
Yeah, good pick.
Nice. So John, what about you? Number 3. I'm guessing it's going to be some sort of tile game.
Yeah, good guess there.
Thank you.
My number 3 game is Queendomino. Super simple game, but I can't even count the number of times I played this with either our group or other people from work or whatever. I've probably sold like 10 copies of it to people too, just by talking about how awesome it is.
Yeah.
But Queendomino's awesome. It's an easy game to get people into. It's just complicated enough that there's a lot of viable strategies, so it's different every time you play it. But again, it's just a tile placement game, and you're trying to create your little kingdoms and score points at the end of the game. And I don't know, it's just a blast. I don't know.
Yeah.
We played it a ton. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys don't win a lot, but
Yeah, that's right. We don't.
We don't, but it is a ton of fun. And one that, if you mix in King Domino with it, you can build out the 7x7
Right.
boards, and I think we should probably look into doing that too.
probably.
That'd be
And
fun.
adding the expansion, the Giants expansion
Yeah.
finally. We haven't tried that, but it looks
Yeah.
cool. I don't know.
I think probably
Great game.
the best part of that game is when you see somebody else make a horrible misplay.
And you
then
know
it
they're
just-
not going to be able to finish
Yep.
their 5x5.
Oh, that is
Yeah.
the most
You're
satisfying
like, oh,
piece.
you're not going to be able to get that done.
Because you can tell probably halfway through the game if you've got a chance to win or not.
Yeah.
And then you're just trying not to make that misstep where you just ruin your board.
Only done that once. Otherwise, I've always had a 5x5.
Yep.
That's just mean.
But it's also satisfying again when you watch them realize
Yes.
Yeah.
they made that
Yeah.
mistake like 3
Yeah.
turns later.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there kind of laughing internally. Yeah. No.
And they look at that tile that they're going to draft. Well, wait, I can't place this anymore.
Yeah.
You're damn right you can.
Yeah. No, there's
Yeah.
a lot of great things about this game. And another simple one to teach, I think, too.
Yes,
Yeah,
that one is
really
very
honest to
simple to
say,
teach. Yep, very
I've
approachable.
taught people that don't play games at all, and they absolutely loved it. Got it for their family, something to play. It's one of the few games I've gotten Kirsten and her friends to play.
Yep.
It's just a really, I don't know, I think well-rounded game and
Yeah.
Yeah.
not overly complicated while still having some depth to it.
Yeah.
Approachable for newer gamers and for hardcore
Yeah.
gamers.
Yep.
Yep. My number 3 then is Viticulture. We've talked about it plenty. I'm really sentimental, so that's why it's so high on my list. Is before this, is I would have other games that I would play, whether it be card games like cribbage or things like that, or Pokemon or whatever. But Viticulture was the first real tabletop game that we started playing. And yeah, the theme is it's very hard to sell the legitimacy of this hobby if the first game that you run home and say to your wife, "Hey, I played a game where we're making wine."
Yeah. Yeah.
But just it was developing a new style of thinking of Euro style resource management, engine building. Like this, just it was a whole new world that was opened up to me for this game. And I mean, we don't play it a whole lot anymore, but I just every time there's a hint that we bring it to the table, I love to play it. I want to play it, and it's just I just really enjoy everything that game brings.
So this was kind of your oh crap game, like oh crap. There's more to it than just Monopoly and
Yes.
cribbage and
Oh
stuff
yes.
like that.
No,
Yeah.
this is where it became a hobby for me with
Yeah.
Viticulture.
And I think you guys laughed at me when I first brought this
Oh,
up. But I was
absolutely.
like, guys, Trust me.
Yeah, and then we were just fine. We'll try it. We're a bunch of grown men playing a board game, and what have we got to lose?
I will say it is surprising that games that I thought sounded kind of ridiculous or weren't going to be entertaining have turned out to be surprise hits.
So, Corey, what is your number 3 game?
My number 3 is yet again another Stefan Feld game, and not the last one on my list. But this game is it's a tile placement game, very, very simple. It's Castles of Burgundy. Tile placement, very simple. No. So yeah, Castles of Burgundy. In this game, each turn is extremely simple. You just roll out 2 dice, and what can you do with those 2 values? You're basically claiming tiles off of the main board, putting them onto your own player board, and then from the storage spot on your player board, you're placing them out into your kingdom. And depending on where you're placing them to combo off other tiles is getting you different points and doing different things for you. And I don't know, that's about it, the gist of it. Very simple. It doesn't sound like much, but just so elegant, so clean. So every play is just, I don't know, is different too, because there's so many different tiles in this game. And I just bought the new anniversary edition that includes 10 different expansions for it, which is, as much as I love this game, I haven't gotten any of the expansions previously, so I'm excited to try those.
And that kind of says something about the game. I mean, it was good.
Good just as a base game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say, it was my number 9. It was a surprise hit. I mean, that tile placement I really like, and
Yeah.
I haven't even played it that much, but it's awesome.
It is extremely dry, but the mechanics itself, once you get going, once you start figuring out the different combos, it's a lot of fun.
Number 2.
Yeah.
So we have gone through everything except for now the top 2s. So it's the top 2 games of each of us all time. John, what's your second favorite game of all time?
My second favorite game is a game that's already been mentioned before, and that is Blood Rage by Eric Lang. Great game. I love the theme of the Viking and Norse mythology. That really strikes a cool chord with me, especially being from Minnesota. I think we have to be into that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a prerequisite.
Yeah. The area control, the card drafting. I mean, everything in this game has a purpose. There's tons of strategies and ways you can progress down this game. Some don't work out, some do, but that's kind of the fun of drafting those cards and hoping they kind of play together, and then trying to plan your turn for when you get your warriors onto the board, or plop out that sea serpent or that other monster that just
Pop that sea serpent. Don't forget to flush.
Or the other monsters that just blow up the board. I mean, it's exciting.
Yeah.
No, some of the cool major themes of that one, where if you're trying to get your characters to die in Ragnarok, I think
and
that's
then
cool.
get released from Valhalla, you can play the quests that get you tons of points.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's crazy.
That's cool when dying is a valid strategy to
Yeah.
win the game.
Which is part of the old Viking culture.
That's really cool. Did it help at all? You almost got run over by Eric Lang at PAX Unplugged.
Oh, I completely always forget about that. Yeah, I was just standing there talking to Corey, and all of a sudden some guy runs through the thing, and my phone goes flying.
Yeah.
Turns out it's Eric Lang. So if you see this,
Comment below.
nothing happened. But I just want you to know I know it was you.
That is true.
So, Ryan, what is your second favorite game of all time?
My second favorite game of all time so far is definitely the biggest box I own. That's Gloomhaven. Really tight game, great legacy aspects. You can play it as one-off scenarios or smaller campaigns if you want to. So much time went into the design of this game. Kind of the surprise of when you retire one of your characters and can start a new one just adds to opening a new box feel, which is always fun. I guess the only complaint would be setup time and teardown time take a while, but again, just like Alien Legacy or Legend Encounters Aliens, definitely worth the time of setup and teardown. I've not played with the app, which I'm told sort of streamlines some of the bean counting and setup, but yeah, it's just a great game.
This game is definitely at my top of the list to try because it fits things I like storytelling and RPG aspects.
And tile drafting?
There's
I
none
don't
of
think
that.
there's any tile drafting. But yes, if there was, that would help. But no, this is definitely a game I've heard really good things about, and I want to try it sometime.
Definitely the best and tightest hand management game I've ever played.
And I hear there's literally like hundreds of hours of gameplay if you want it to be. Pretty much.
Absolutely.
Like it's just that big of a game, and one that I probably would have already bought if I could have physically lifted it off the shelf at my local game store. But it's just that heavy, I can't pick it up.
Solid.
And if it was a game type you actually enjoyed.
Yes.
I wasn't going to mention that.
Yeah. Since these I know usually don't.
Yeah, I don't like
fit
story-driven stuff, but.
Yeah. Well, then that's very similar to my second one, which is Betrayal at House on a Hill. This was another one of my first early loves. I love the horror theme of it. I love the storytelling. I love the fact that you are building your own house. The expansion, Widow's Wake, is good too. The legacy version that we did was really fun. Sure, a couple of the seasons were kind of campy and whatever. But
Are you coupling the legacy in with this one, or just the base?
I
game?
was saying just the base
Just the
game by
base?
itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That the I just love all the different avenues that the game can go from where it starts out in, and it's just like the classic horror story that you all find yourself in this creepy old building. First thing you do is let's split up, and then you see what happens.
Yeah.
And you know, everybody's always kind of on edge, like, okay, well, we're trying to explore what's going on, but we all want to get items or things like that because we know somebody's going to turn.
Yeah.
And the one downside, which is a major downside, is when the game shifts, sometimes it's hard to figure out the roles or the rules of when the haunt starts. That there's one version that we played, no spoilers, but we had no idea how the game was going to end. Like, we didn't know at what point there was the end game, because even if you died, you weren't dead, you were dead. And that, so everything outside of that, I just love this game. I love some of the really gory things that can kind of happen, like Abomination, which is my number 10. That it really is immersive and unsettling a little bit. I love it. I love that game. Yeah.
Very great theme, and a game type that I don't enjoy, but I would say that I do really enjoy the whole splitting up when there's the traitor or when somebody's turning. I love that when they go into a separate room and you don't know what they're reading or what story they're reading out of and what their mission is compared to yours.
It is such a cool
That's what's
mechanic.
fun.
Really
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
experience to that point. And I agree that once that haunt happens, it's like it's so fun up to that point.
Yep.
And then it's, in my experience, almost never that fun after that.
There's
point.
oftentimes a letdown, yeah. But the storytelling aspect of it, the fact that it's always horror themed,
Yeah.
that's why it's there for me. And I'm not going to try to sell it on people or the mass public. But if ever anybody whispers, hey, maybe we could try playing, yeah, let's play that game.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Like, because that's so fun building the house and splitting up and getting the wrench or getting the lead. Like, it's just great. The omens are great. The story aspect of it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the haunt mechanic is awesome.
And that mystic elevator that sometimes you can screw somebody in the basement.
See ya.
Yeah. So let's see. Corey, your number 2 all time?
My number 2 is the last Stefan Feld game on my list, finally, and that game is Trajan. Trajan, another point salad style game where everything you're doing is just getting you a bunch of points here and there all over the place. But the main mechanism that I really enjoy in this game is the Mancala mechanism. You've got basically kind of a rondelle wheel track, and you're picking up these different tokens of different colors and dropping one off at a time as you go around this track. And depending on where you land, with what color you land with, you can do different things with it. Each spot on the wheel has a different action that you can partake in around the board. There's workers where you're building out houses to try to get combos and different what do you call it, like set collection type element. You have another element to the game where you're sending out these military guys around a map, and those will give you special bonuses to then trigger different things later on. And I don't know, there's just so much to this game that I can't really dive into all of it, but a lot of set collection, a lot of point getting, and all in that really fun way of that Mancala mechanism. So I just love it.
It's a super heavy game the first time you introduced it
Yep.
to us.
Yeah.
A lot of mental horsepower trying to understand how to proceed in this game, but once you do,
Yeah.
there's so many ways you can be getting points, so many ways you can interact with each other or not.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it gets better with the more plays. If you give it a chance and play it more than once or twice, it really shines more and more with each play.
Yeah. It's been fantastic. I know you kind of were really giddy to teach us that game finally, because you didn't throw it at us right away.
Yep.
The moment you've all been waiting for, number 1.
So, without further ado, we're finally here to our top 1 game of all time. definitive. List will never change.
Can't argue.
Can't argue.
Can't
Yep.
argue it.
Yep. This is set in stone. So who wants to go first?
Oh boy.
I'll go first.
Oh, good. Okay, Ryan, hit us with it.
My favorite game of all time is Pandemic Legacy Season 1. I've never experienced a game like this before I played it. I mean, Legacy games were pretty new at that point. Maybe just Risk Legacy was before that. But it took a game that had been pretty well played out over time. It's still fun, but once you kind of really get good at the roles, like you pretty much win every time, regular Pandemic. And this game just turns it into a new game month after month after month, and it is outstanding. I won't spoil anything, but opening up some of the boxes, like even after I think month 6 or month 7, I was just blown away. I was like, whoa, this changes everything. This is awesome. I can't wait to play the next month again. And it's the first time where I like pulled a piece and it was like, destroy this card, and I was like, I've never destroyed part of my board game before.
Yeah.
But after you do it once, you're like, that was pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah.
But so that's my favorite game.
And that is a legacy one we haven't done yet.
Yeah.
Talking cardboard.
So is this more like story driven, like holy cow, story, or like are the mechanics changing fun too, or?
It does follow a little bit of a story, but I wouldn't say it's a story-driven game.
So I might like it.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody doesn't like this game, it'd just be surprising. It's just such a good game. It starts out with a very simple game, which is essentially just Pandemic you play for the first month, and then it just kind of adds a little mechanic the next month, another mechanic the next month, another mechanic the next month. And I think it also has, you obviously can't replay the same copy, but if someone else brought it to the table and you're like, oh yeah, I love that game, there is some randomness to it depending on how your first few games go, that it would still definitely be very fun to play again, which is great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I want to try it.
John, what is your favorite game of all time?
My favorite game is actually a game that when Corey told us he pre-ordered it, I thought it had like the dumbest sounding like theme to it.
You don't trust me, guys.
I was like,
come on.
What's this game about birds? Like, how is that going to be fun? And I've got to say, it was an instant hit.
Yeah.
I mean, tight mechanics, tight gameplay, just everything about it is great. It's not too difficult, it's not too easy. Tons of different strategies you can do with this. You only have the 5 actions you can take to play out all these birds.
What game is it?
Oh yeah, it's Wingspan. It's been mentioned before on the list. No, great game.
Good catch, host.
Yeah. Yep. I could talk about this game forever. I mean, it's been different every time we've played. There's a little bit of randomness to it, so you're not always able to maybe get an awesome engine going, but you're still able to do something with what you're given, which I think is great.
Yeah, and I think if you're playing that heavily into your strategy anyway, that it's like, oh, it comes down to the card draw, you're maybe not doing it right.
Right, exactly. I think all the birds have abilities you can make work somehow pretty easily. I mean, the other things that make this game awesome is like each card has a fun fact on it, so if you're really into seeing that, you can learn while you're playing the game, and it shows you where they're from. And
Wow, you're really selling it.
yeah, and then you get the expansion, and I've got all these European birds and more eggs. And the one complaint I have, and Corey remedied this, it should come with a bird nest for the eggs. Like, you already got the bird feeder for
Totally
the
agree with
food.
that.
Yep.
We got the bird nest. It just makes it feel more complete.
Yeah, it's perfect because you see all those colored eggs in that little nest, and yeah, it's just the tactile aspect of the game with the eggs, and then the dice aren't your regular like plastic dice, that they're kind of a nice
They're
wood
wooden,
dice.
yeah.
And you've got the bird tower
Right.
that you put the dice in that it rolls. It's just the little things that no other game does.
I don't know who at Stonemeyer is in charge of this, but please put a nest in the game and then send us one.
And make
For
them
the
look
game
less
we
like the
have.
chocolate candy eggs.
Oh,
yeah,
they're
that's
little
been a problem.
deceiving.
And
yes.
hopefully they give a reason to the different color eggs eventually too.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be
Yep.
nice.
Maybe in an expansion. I don't know.
And another thing that I never noticed a game did this before, but other games do it. They have a map on the side of the box for how you put things away
Right.
so it all fits.
Yeah.
Because so many games don't do that you
Yeah.
don't
Very
remember.
crucial, because I don't know how many games there are that I put away in the box is just slightly not right when you put the lid
Yeah.
on.
I think this was one of the first games that did that we've noticed.
Yep. Yep.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
Is that it's, I mean, not revolutionary, but it's a game changer that we noticed in our talking cardboard culture, and a lot of other people have been that way too. That just little things that it does that are different. Yeah, that's absolutely
So yeah,
excellent
Wingspan,
choice.
number one this year for me. Your birds can eat other birds. Like, how smart is that? Everything is played so well.
There are no garbage cards,
Yeah,
that you
no.
can be having birds that get eaten by other birds.
Well, and off of that too, for a Euro style game, the theme actually plays really well into itself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
every bird, like you can imagine that if it's a predatory bird, that
Yeah.
it's going to do what it's
Exactly.
going to do.
Yep.
very well
And you
thought
score
out.
points for that. So.
Yeah.
Or
Yep.
sometimes, in order to do a bird's ability, it has to use eggs from other birds, so it has to eat the eggs.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's really well done.
And first time designer, Miss Hargrave.
Yeah,
Great game
Good
for
job.
first game.
Yeah.
Or for any
Fantastic.
game. Yeah.
yeah. So we'll spend a little time on my number one, which is at this point it's pretty unknown. It is this old baseball game called MLB Showdown by Wizards of the Coast. It had a print run from 2000 to 2005. I first saw it in a newspaper article, so that shows how old this all was. Yep.
It's a newspaper.
I know. So it's pretty much it's a collectible card game, trading card game, and you are building a Major League Baseball roster where each card is an individual, specific, real baseball player, and they have their cost, they have their different abilities, the positions they play, and it's based on rolling a 20-sided die. So it's one-on-one regular baseball game, and each of the results are determined by the roll of a 20-sided die. There's strategy that comes into play with the way that you construct your team. There's a hand of strategy cards, so it dictates: do you steal? Do you do certain things as you're the pitcher or defensive alignment and stuff? And my brothers and I, and to a lesser extent my sister and my dad even, would spend summers just playing this game. We go to local game stores when it was still kind of popular. I played it a couple of times there. We would do seasons because we collected almost all of the cards, where we would create a Minnesota Twins team that was from 2000 to 2005, and there was not very good crossover between the years, but where we would just have a season where it's all the Major League Baseball teams, they'd all play a certain number of games against each other, then we'd do a postseason tournament, and I wasted summers playing this game. I
sounds
wasted
awesome.
thousands of dollars playing this game, but it was a great bonding experience for me and my siblings. It scratched all the itches. It was a huge money pit, so I spent all my allowance and then all my first job's money on this game. But it just, special place in my heart is MLB Showdown. The NBA version was much lesser, and then the NFL version was crap. But MLB Showdown by Wizards of the Coast, it was just a fantastic game, and I still have most of my cards.
So question with that, would it be a fun drafting game? To
Oh,
draft
absolutely.
your teams too?
Yes.
That'd be cool.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then that would be one where if I had the complete set for one of the years, that it could be draft and then play a tournament style of thing. And Yep.
When you are buying more, is it like you buy like a team, or would you just get packs and it was random?
packs.
Or, okay.
Yep. So in that respect, it's kind of like Pokemon, where you could buy these like pre-made decks, but then you customize from there. And if they give you a real generic smattering of here's enough players to field a team,
Sure.
but then if you want quality or you want to fit underneath the salary cap, is then you have to be acquiring more. And it probably won't ever leave the top spot on my list, but I don't anticipate anybody watching this video. Leave a comment below if you've ever heard of this game even. But yeah, that is a special place in my heart, and MLB Showdown is going to be my top game.
Sounds awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the man who started this list is going to be the man who ends this list.
Naturally. My number one favorite game of all time has been mentioned already, actually, by Ryan. It was his number 4 favorite game, and that game is Great Western Trail. My all-time favorite game ever. I don't know if it'll be dethroned anytime soon. It was my number 1 last year, too. And I actually just got the expansion played as well, and that just adds so much to the game and just makes it so much more fun even. But the base game itself, it's a generic... You've got the Great Western Trail that you're leading your cowboy or cowgirl down the trail, and depending on what spot you land on, that's the action you can do. Everywhere from anywhere from selling a cow from your hand for money to buying more cows to your hand because you're looking for different kinds of cows to have in your hand by the end of the trail, because the more different cows you have, the more points, and the further out into the better cities you can sell them to. The more duplicates you have, the worse your hand is. So you're kind of trying to eject cards from your hand and pick up new ones to try to make that mismatch of cards in your hand. And just everything about this game, down to the different paths you have of winning too. Every strategy is viable. Every strategy that I've tried or that I've seen is viable. So I don't know. Prove me wrong in the comments below if you have any other experience. But you have an engineer, a train engineer that can make your train go further out better, and that gets you more points by the end of the game. You have the cowboy route, which gets you better and better cows to your hand. You have the craftsman strategy, and that's to get better and better buildings out on the trail. Because another really cool mechanism in this game is that there are empty places on the trail that you can build your houses to, and as people move through them, they might have to pay you money just to pass through. So that's really neat. And if they land on your building, they only get like some simple auxiliary action on their board. They don't get to benefit from the full action. But when you land on your own spot, you get this amazing action that nobody else has access to. So just the variability and the different strategies that come out of this game. The theme I could live without, honestly. The cows thing is kind of unique and fun, but the cowboy thing is just not really my style. But even without that, it's my #1 favorite game of all time, just with the strategy and everything else that has to do with it. So yeah, my #1, Great Western Trail.
That's it's always fun to hear people light up about their games. I mean, seeing as we've progressed through these lists, just the more and more energy that people have talking about their top games.
Yeah.
And you get to learn a little bit about people and their backstory just by what we think is our best game or most important. And so as we go along and play, we will definitely be changing our list, and probably someday our top ones are going to be knocked off. But it's a snapshot of where we were when we started playing games, and then how this game in particular kind of epitomizes who we are as a gamer. And we hope, that's why we're putting out these videos, is that it introduces you all to other games. It's introduced us to other games from each other. And it's just a great way to understand kind of what makes people tick, of when you figure out, well, what games do you like playing? What strategies do you like? What are these things that you just can't put your finger on? Yeah.
And that's honestly what started this channel too. The fruition of it all is just to get more people involved and find out what people like and why they like it. And if they haven't been introduced to certain games or whatever too, you can introduce them, and it's fun to see what ticks for different people, like what George said. I think that's awesome. So anyway, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you like what we're doing here on the channel and want to see more videos, which we'll be coming out with a lot more here in the future, then consider subscribing to the channel as well. And I think that's it for now.
If there are any games on our list that you really think sound interesting, try them out. Let us know what you think, or if there's any games that you really like that we haven't tried or aren't on this list that maybe you think should be up there, let us know, because we'd love to try them.
So until next time, take care. This is Talking Cardboard. We're gonna go play games now. Peace.